Hi, I'm Novel Mike, and this is my opinion. So let's talk about The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. This is a game I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and the reason I'm talking about it now is because the release date for the second game has just been announced, and it is coming out in just about 2 weeks by the time this goes up. So there's no better time to talk about it, and I first want to say this was a game I bought completely on a whim. After I had played Legend, Tales of Zestiria last year and came away from it very bored and disappointed after not liking Xillia or Xillia 2 very much. I was feeling really let down, and then I was like, okay, Fallout 4 comes out, that's going to be awesome, going to love it. Played it, didn't grab me very well, and I didn't enjoy it that much, and I didn't even finish the game. And that just made me rather depressed because that was the big game of last year for me that I was really excited for after Witcher 3. And this game wasn't at all on my radar. And it was released right at near the very end of the year. I think it was like December 21st, 22nd, something like that. I picked it up, again, mostly on a whim because I like the cover art and I liked what I was reading on the back about how the story worked because it sounded very much like a Persona kind of game with social links and the school element, that kind of thing. And it's probably the best decision I made last year. This game is probably one of my favorite games of PS3 and one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It's not perfect. It's a very slow burn with the story. It takes a long time for anything to develop into anything, and pretty much like the plot doesn't really start to take off until near the end of the 4th chapter. And after that, obviously it picks up from there, but what I absolutely love about this game is its story and characters and the world that it actually throws at you. It's called Legend of Heroes as the series, and Trails of Cold Steel is the first game of basically the newest line of those games. The first ones were Trails in the Sky, which we got the first and second parts of, and the third part comes out early next year for PC. And there's a whole other series called I don't remember what off the top of my head. It's basically what is generally referred to as the Crossbell arc, what takes place in the city called Crossbell. And that's 2 games in there, and we've got 2 games now with Trails of Cold Steel, at least in Japan, and a third one on the way. So there's several games that this all takes place in, and essentially you play as Rean Schwarzer. You are a military cadet going to Thor's military academy, a military academy that allows both nobles and commoners to attend, but they don't allow them to basically mix the classes. So nobles go to classes 1 and 2, commoners go to classes 3, 4, and 5, and Green, as well as these other kids, these 8 other kids that join you, are involved with a new class, oddly titled Class 7 instead of 6, because there's a joke there, haha, we're funny. But Class 7 essentially is the first class that actually mixes the 2 groups together and has a unique curriculum. Specifically, the kids go on field trips after, towards the later part of the month, and that's where part of the bigger part of the game takes place, because you get to see different areas of the country of Ebronia, when normally you're just stuck in this little town of Trista and the academy that you go to. So, what I loved about the game was its characters, and the story itself I am not going to spoil. I'll just say that everything in the game has a huge payoff, and one way or another by the end of the game, all the little things that build up over the course of the game have some kind of impact at the very end, and that is why I'm so excited for the second game, because oh my god, that ending, which again I will not spoil. I will do a spoiler talk next week for that, and it will be just like this, a Let's Talk, but specifically a spoiler talk about the ending of that game, because there is so much I have to say. But anyway, the story itself is about these kids coming together to work in this class, figure out if they can work together and, breach the divide between nobles and commoners, and that kind of thing. And easier said than done with how some of these characters act, both the nobles and the commoners. So, these kids are thrown together, and they're all very stereotypical at first. You don't really think that there is going to be much depth, at least I didn't when I first played it, but there is. Every character has a rather detailed backstory about who they are, what their family went through, how the class system affected them, how where they grew up affected them, what they've gone through to get to this military academy and why they're there. And it's told to you in sparingly parts, And it's just nice that you get to see so much detail in characters that when you first meet them don't act more than stereotypes, or they don't, at the very least, they don't seem like they're going to have a lot of depth like more modern Japanese RPGs where they are just a stereotype. They don't ever evolve anything from that. These characters do grow through the course of the game. Every character you can say is not the same character they were at the very beginning of the game at the very end, or even in between certain chapters. They do grow and interact with each other, and it's nice to see them just all eventually just come together as one cohesive unit. And one thing I absolutely liked about the game wasn't just the main characters and the supporting characters, all of which are really great, and some of them are absolutely hilarious, but even the most minor characters in this game, you know, the random kids you see in towns when you go into a Japanese RPG town, or just characters you talk to, most of the time they don't have names, they don't have any kind of interaction with the rest of the world. They might give you some random advice or tell you about a quest that you might be able to pick up, but that's it. They don't have names, they don't have personalities, they don't have a storyline. And pretty much every minor character of this game has some kind of storyline. You'll find them out and about in the town, in the school, at all times of the day, and you can talk to them in the afternoon, the evening, the morning, whatever, and they'll always have something different to tell you. It's never the same thing, it's never the same line, and there's just so much. And it's not just like, oh hey, I heard this is really cool. It's like, oh hey, this is what's going on with me, this crazy stuff happened to me. Yeah, isn't that funny? Haha, yeah. So there's a lot of depth with all the characters and what they say and what they're going through, and these minor characters are just so interesting because they interact with the world, and it makes it feel like a literal living, breathing place, instead of just, oh hey, here's NPC town number 67 that, okay, go buy your weapons, your armor, and get 3 quests and go do them for us. It really has characters that develop alongside of the rest of the cast, not directly because you interact with them, but because they've got their own stuff they're dealing with. 2 characters that I absolutely loved was these 2 twins, Lindo and Vivi, because Vivi, the younger sister, just loves to pick on her older sister, and she just comes up with these crazy things to mess with her, and it's absolutely hilarious. Like, just laugh out loud funny at several different points. And then, you know, there's these there's this one set of characters, this commoner boy and a noble girl who were friends when they were younger but were separated, and now they've found each other again in the school, and they've grown apart. And while the girl wants them to, you know, be friends again, the guy just doesn't feel like he can live up to her standard because she's a noble, and there's that whole thing going on with the class system with that, and it dives so far in. Like, there's so much more I can talk about with the characters, like the way that they have like a social link system like Persona, how, you know, all these different minor characters can interact with your characters as well as other minor characters, and, you know, how they have friendships, and, you know, they're all named and they have some kind of story that progresses through every chapter, and how at the very end even they aren't the same people that they were in the beginning. It's just amazing. It really encourages you to talk to every NPC and learn more about them, and it's completely optional. It's not something you have to do. It's just something you can if you want to experience it and see it, and my god, I did. But it's not just that makes the game awesome for me. Like, the music itself is fantastic. Like, the animations and like the actual battle animation, stuff like that, that could be better. It's not, you know, it's a PS3 game, so it's already dated in that fact anyway, but it came out several years ago in Japan, so we got it really late, so that doesn't hold up very well. But the music is fantastic. I bought the soundtrack for this game because I liked it that much, and I don't normally do that. And then you have the battle system, which honestly reminds me a lot of Phantasy Star 4, where you have characters that have their own special abilities called crafts, but they also have equipable quartz, as they call them, which provide magic, which they call arts in the game. Get it? Arts and crafts. But the arts are all pretty much, you know, a universal pool of magic that your team can have, so you can have them, every character loaded up with the magic you want them to have, but they also have these unique crafts that define them, and they're not all the same level of strength. One character, Laura, who has a giant sword, very reminiscent of Cloud Strife. She is easily the strongest physical attacker in the entire game, and she can wreck people so easily, especially towards the end. Like, I think when I first did the final boss, using a certain strategy in a certain equips, she literally did a third of the boss's damage in her first attack, which was insane. But what makes the game so great is just how everything comes together into a really cohesive narrative, and has these brilliant characters that are well developed, even the minor ones. And if you play games for story, this is the game for you. If you play for gameplay and you're not a fan, if like cliched characters really turn you off, it's going to be hard for you to get through the early parts of this game until you start learning more about the characters. It's not a perfect game, but there's so much good in it. I'm surprised how kind of swept under the rug it's been, because it is, for me at least, the Persona 3 and 4 of this generation, where you have these games that really just didn't pick up right away, but once people have played them and seen them, like, there's so much depth to them that really encourages you to just play them and talk about them with your friends and all that. I've gotten several of my friends to play them, and I'm so proud of that, because it is just really, really good. And Trails of Cold Steel comes out in just a couple weeks, so I will probably do a video on that after I've played through that, as well as I'm going to do next week a spoiler talk for the first game, and talk all about the story and all the, mostly the last arc, I will say, of the game, where everything comes to a head. But that'll be next week. I know a lot of this has been rambling. It's hard to talk about all this because there's so much I want to say about all these different things, but we'll get into that more next week. Just know, if you like story, if you like characters in your games that are developed and interesting, and you like anime art style, pick up Trails of Cold Steel. It's like $40, probably less by this point. It is absolutely worth every penny. It was my favorite game of last year, and I cannot wait for its sequel in just a few weeks. I'm Novel Mike. That was my opinion. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.